Hello everyone, my name is Seth Avila, and the presentation I will be giving to you today for design communications is the 7 elements of design. Let's go ahead and begin. The first element I'll be talking to you about is called space. Let's go ahead with the definition. Space is the area that a shape or form occupies in a design. It can also be defined as positive and negative. So positive space is the object or element that fills in the design. Negative space is the empty or open space between the design elements. For example, when you're designing something, it's the background. That's usually the negative space. So here's some examples. As we see right here, here's the negative space. It's all black. Then down here's the positive space. It's all white. And then over here, we have white space, which is the space around objects. And then over here, we have 3D space, which is the special reality of width, height, and depth within a design element. So now let's move on to our next element, line. A line is a continuous mark made by 2 points that are connected to each other. It can also divide space by acting as a border around the other design elements. If there is a negative space, a line can be used to create more elements in order to limit that space. So now for some examples. So over here, we have a zigzag line, which falls under line variations. And then over here, we have a rhythmic line, which are orderly and predictable. And then over here, we have the weight of a line, which refers to the thin or thickness of a design. So as we see right here, this apple the line is very thin, and then the line in this apple is much thicker. Let's go on to our next element, and that is shape. A shape is the outline of an area or figure. In design, we talk about 2 types of shapes, organic and inorganic. Organic shapes forms that can be found in nature. For example, a pear is made up of 2 circles, but it stays in an irregular form. So like the bottom half of a pear is a much bigger circle, and the top half is a much smaller circle. And then inorganic, these are precisely geometric shapes, such as squares, rectangles, triangles, your basic shapes and all that. So here we have organic shapes, which is triangle, and it's made up of much smaller triangles. And then we have your inorganic, which is just one simple circle. And then over here we have an asymmetrical shape, which is like a paint splatter or a cow. It's supposed to be like disorderly and chaotic. Now let's move on to the next element, which is size. Size is the comparison of an object's size to another object or its environment. For example, whenever you make a document, you can choose the size to be 12 by 12, 10 by 10, 9 by 9, etc., etc. If you want bigger or smaller. So over here we have a font that I believe is 48 points. And then over here we have a font that is 24 points. So the bigger number, bigger size. It's that simple. Next element is one we're all familiar with, and that is color. Color is light reflected on an object. It is the design element that draws the most attention. It is considered by many to be the most powerful communication tool. So here's some examples. We have the color wheel. Right here we have the primary colors, which are red, yellow, and blue. Then this one we have the secondary colors, which are green, purple, and orange. And then over here we have tertiary colors, which are a mix of multiple colors. For example, blue, green, yellow, red, all that. Next design element is texture. Textures are illusions that use overlapping shapes and shadows to create a 3-dimensional design. The use of patterns and repeating shapes can also give a visual impression of texture. So over here we have some examples. So right here we have a what you would call tactile texture. It's when it gives a certain feel to design. For example, it can be the design can get like a soft feel, a hard feel. Over here it's like a jagged. You see squares, cubes being made out of, all on just a flat surface. Then over here you just have like zigzags, but what a very detailed material to make it look authentic. And the last design element is value. Value helps designers determine how light and or dark something is. In between the white and black, there is a range called grayscale. In order to find value, designers use a 9-step scale of light and dark to where 1 is the lightest and 9 is the darkest. So here's the scale. So from 1 to 3, we have highlights, which are the lightest. From 4 to 6, we have midtones, which are in the middle, like in that grayscale I was talking about. And then 7 to 9 are the shadows, which are the darkest in the scale. And that is the end of my presentation. I look forward to reading all your responses. Any points you have for me, that would be great. And yeah.